Good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. I am Pastor Nick. Today is Marketplace Monday. I am so sorry that I am a minute or two late. I actually hit go, and we have this like 1 minute or 2 minute countdown. Uh, uh, so I started the countdown and I forgot to hit go on the live. So I had to start all over again. Anyway, we're here now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Love you guys, man. I am excited about our message today. Today, we're talking about, am I being taken advantage of? If you remember, I guess about a month ago now, we started kind of like a little bit of a new series called Handling Real Situations at Work with Wisdom. So I spent a whole lot of time talking to you guys about doing inner reflection, looking inward about different problems and challenges that you could have at work. And then I kind of shifted gears to look outward a little bit. Look at the employers, look at the people that you do work with. Because, it's not always just you. Sometimes you do go to work or you are working in an environment that's dysfunctional, in an environment that's not productive. And you need to learn how to notice these things. You need to learn how to know when you're being taken advantage of. And one of the most difficult workplace questions is the question of, am I being taken advantage of? Because the simple truth is there are a lot of really, really good employees out there that are willing to help. They're willing to stay late. They're willing to do extra work, and do what it takes to support the team. But the key is learning the difference between healthy contribution and unhealthy exploitation. Let me say that again. The difference is learning the key between healthy contribution and unhealthy exploitation. So, what we want to do today on Marketplace Monday, and like I was saying over the last several weeks, we've really talked about things like what do you do when your boss doesn't follow through? Remember that show that we talked about? We talked about why hard work gets overlooked. Why or what do you do when you feel disrespected? So we talked about a lot of that. But today, what I want to talk about is, how do I know if I'm being taken advantage of? Because, the truth is, as a believer, sometimes we can want to do more. We can want to go more. We can want to be a blessing. But there's a big difference between being committed, again, and being exploited. So let's look at it today. So write this down. Point number one. Extra effort is not automatically exploitation. So let's just start with that. Let's start right there. Just because you're asked to do more, it doesn't mean that you're being taken advantage of. Every job has times and seasons. I tell you guys this in everything. There are times when a project is going to require more effort. There are times the team is just going to be shorthanded. You're in the middle of transition. There are times that deadlines become really, really intense because there's some things you got to get done. And there are times the team just, quite frankly, needs to pull together. Good employees understand that sometimes extra effort is simply part of being professional. It's simply part of being professional. In my job, I primarily run sales, marketing, business development. And they all know that's about results. So it's pretty simple to understand that. But take my sales guys, if they're away for 3 or 4 days on the road at an event or at customers, when they get back on Friday, I don't expect them to clock in at, if you will, at 8 o'clock and be there all day. If they want to take a half a day on Friday and enjoy their man, they've been gone all week, So there are times you got to kind of press in, but good employees understand, again, when it's time to, buckle down, to come together, when we're behind on quota, or we're behind on getting a project done, that you're occasionally going to have to make a sacrifice. The problem is when that sacrifice becomes expectation. Write that down. When sacrifice becomes expectation, that's the issue. Helping occasionally builds trust. Being expected to carry everything creates frustration. Helping occasionally builds trust. Being expected to carry everything will cause frustration. Main point number 2, look for patterns, not moments. What do you mean, Pastor? Write that down. Look for patterns, not moments. The principle keeps showing up in these series because it's important, right? It's important to see patterns in people, not moments, because everybody can have a bad moment. Everybody can have a down moment. So don't evaluate one moment. Evaluate what you see happening over and over. What are the patterns? Ask yourself, am I always being asked to do something extra, to work late, to stay late? Is the workload always consistently uneven? You don't have any pattern. You never know when you're going to have to put in a 12-hour day, right? Are others being held to the same standard? That was a little bit dangerous, but it's there, right? Is extra effort ever acknowledged? That's another thing. Are they acknowledging what you're doing? I mean, we got to understand, Gallup shows us, again, Gallup is the polling company, one of them we use Barna, we use Gallup, we use Harvard, right? But Gallup shows us that perceived unfairness is one of the fastest ways to reduce engagement and morale. But y'all know how I feel about this fair thing. So you got to be careful with that. You got to make sure it's not just people, taking advantage of how far you're willing to push them, because you got to let people know as well. So write this down. A difficult season is normal. A permanent imbalance is a warning sign. A difficult season is normal. A permanent imbalance is a warning sign. Point number 3 today, healthy boundaries protect healthy relationships. Now, I don't know if you guys notice this or not, but you can apply this to work. You can apply this if you're single. And you're dating. You can apply this in your marriage, right? Healthy boundaries, right? Many people think boundaries are selfish, but they're not. They're just simply not. Healthy boundaries create healthy expectations. Say it with me. You inspect what you expect. But you can't inspect a boundary that doesn't exist, something that you have not established. Some people become frustrated because they've never communicated what their limits are. They've never said, hey, listen, man, I'm willing to stay to 6 o'clock, but I got kids. I mean, I just can't stay till 7, 8 o'clock. If there's something I could take home and do, I'm willing to talk about that as an exception. I'm willing to talk about that as an exception. And that exception needs to be documented. If they ask you to do it, you need to, when you get done doing it, send an email. Hey, John, listen, I had no problem taking that work home and working on that last night till 11 o'clock. But I want to make sure that we're clear that, especially if you see something happen a second and a third time, this is becoming more of the rule than the exception. So remember, you're going to become frustrated if you never communicate the limits. Why? Why do you say that? Because when you say yes, when you mean no, that's not a good thing, right? You tell people you're going to do something and inside you don't want to do it. Agree, watch this, when they're overwhelmed. Stay silent, right? When you should speak up, right? We do this all the time. What does this do? It builds resentment, folks. It builds resentment. It builds resentment. You start not liking your job. If you're serving in ministry, you could start not liking serving because you feel like you're being taken advantage of. Maybe you're not being taken advantage of. Maybe you're just being asked to do more. And then another thing is your manager doing more. But at the end of the day, unspoken boundaries often become that hidden resentment. Point number 4, speak up. Most important one. We'll probably end here. Speak up before you blow up. Write that down. Speak up. Somebody put that in the chat. Speak up before you blow up. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they wait too long to speak up. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they wait too long to speak up. They tolerate, they put up with, they tolerate, they put up with, they tolerate, they put up with. You see this in marriages, you see this with kids, right? And then what happens? We eventually explode. A better approach is respectful, write this down, respectful, direct communication. Instead, I'm tired of this, right? That's what happens. We get to the point, I'm tired of this. It's got to be, listen, I want to discuss my workload. I want to make sure that we're aligned on priorities and expectation. Let me say that again. I want to discuss my workload. I want to make sure that we are aligned on priorities and what's expected of me. You got to understand something. Leadership and communication. When we read Harvard Business, we read Gallup. We're reading, and when when I'm studying leadership and I'm looking at different leadership classes, they emphasize all the time that early, often communication prevents many workplace conflicts. Early, often communication. I had somebody ask me a week and a half ago about after-hour events. What's the protocol? Do I have to go to them? Do I got to go to these? When you're in an executive leadership position, a lot of times, the company's doing things. There are things that go on after hours. Are you expected to show up to those? It all depends on your position. It depends on your pay grade. But let me tell you something, folks. If you're making $100,000 or more a year, be expected to do a lot of extra stuff. And understand that's when it's very important that you clearly communicate. And when you're communicating these things and the way you feel about things and the way you want to handle things, don't ever make it like you're not flexible. Hey, look, I don't mind going to these dinners, but, this is going on or that's going on. We have 4, after hour, events this month. Would it be okay if I attended a couple of them versus all 4? You just have good early communication. Write this down. Wise people address issues early. Wise people address issues early. Emotional people address them late. That's the bottom line. They address them late. So here's the question. How do you know if you're being taken advantage of? That's what the whole show's about, right? Number 1, write it down. Is it a pattern or is it a season? That's simple. Is this something that's continually going on or is this something that's seasonal? Even after hour events, when you make a lot of money, you got to be careful with those because these jobs today try to make your job your God, your culture. Forget all that. You need to go do your job. Number 2, have you clearly communicated your concerns and then have things changed? Number 3, am I helping or am I carrying everything? Ask yourself that question. And then lastly, am I protecting both my boundaries and my reputation? You got to realize that. Being a team player is valuable, but wisdom is knowing the difference between serving and being used. Amen? Listen, this is, one of the things you need to realize is the strongest professionals are not always the ones that say yes to everything. The strongest professionals, the strongest team players, they're the ones that know when to help, they know when to speak up, and they know when to do both with wisdom. They need to know, they are the one that knows when to do both with wisdom. Amen? Listen, I hope this has helped you today. It always helps me when I go over these. They're kind of refreshers for me. These are things that will help you keep from getting, frustrated, getting taken advantage of in the workplace. I am excited, actually, about our show next Monday. Next Monday, we're going to talk about why good employees stop caring. Have you ever been at a place in your career where you've actually stopped caring? Have you ever been in a place where when you're serving, you at church, you stopped caring? Have you ever been in a place in your marriage where you stopped caring? These things kind of can apply all over the map. Until next Monday, Pastor Nick saying, enjoy life.